can do that. Thank you, Mr. Corbin, from, I don't know, a couple hundred miles away. Amazing when this stuff works, how well it works. That's neat. Okay, welcome to, we've got a law enforcement member and I think a fire department member have joined us already. Welcome to the first Aiken area online TIM team meeting. Just a couple of notes there, please mute your microphones. And if you have any questions or you need to have a discussion with us in any way, shape, or form during the presentations, use the chat feature if you can, or you can email us at network@sctimnetwork.com. That would be terrific. Next slide, please. Okay, we got that one so far. You can see some pictures down the bottom there. It's kind of some neat stuff. When we have these meetings face-to-face, we do a lot of really good stuff. On the bottom left, that's from a Greenville meeting. We had Shep in and they did a demonstration. Wrecker company brought in some vehicles and Shep showed us how they will push, pull, drag, and basically do whatever they need to do to clear the roadway up. And those guys are fantastic. That was a pretty good demonstration. We can do those again when we have the meetings in areas of Shep coverage. In the middle picture there, that's obviously up in the Rock Hill area. And that's a tabletop that we did there. And quite often we do those in our TIM team meetings. I've got all these professionally prepared 6-lane interstates, 2-lane rural roads, intersections, all kinds of stuff. And I got a tackle box full of tractor trailers and tanker tractor trailers and tow trucks, fire trucks, police cars, and traffic cones. And we can set these things up and it gives you a real good two-dimensional view of what the Sharp 2 program is all about. And we can even take an incident that you may have had recently that you want to talk about, and we can set that all up, discuss how vehicles were set up, what worked, what didn't work. It's a really, really neat process. And then the bottom right picture, that's an F-250 pickup truck that was repurposed at the Howe Springs Fire Department just south of Florence. Did a really neat wrap on that with a lot of good graphics. Stuck 100 traffic cones in the back of it, got a message board sign that flips up in the back of the truck, and he tows a large message board sign on a trailer behind it. Chief put that unit together and he makes that available to any area agency in Florence County that needs it for assistance. Doesn't matter if it's the highway patrol out on I-95, which this department, particular fire department, does not cover, but if it's the highway patrol out on I-95 or any one of a number of fire agencies, EMS in Florence County, Sheriff's Department, Florence City Police, Florence City Fire, doesn't matter. If they request this set of equipment, it will respond and set up in a system. So fabulous tool that Chief Dillon there in Howe Springs has made available. Next slide, please. So who are we? Well, we are all types of disciplines that should be participating in this. And again, law enforcement, fire, EMS, DOT, there's a number of agencies that need to be networking and getting together and meeting and greeting prior to us showing up on the scene together. That's what these TIM team meetings are for. One of the reasons that we have these meetings is that networking. The other is that every once in a while we might have a little bit of a problem in a past incident. We get together and we talk about them, almost like a mini after action review, if you will. And we've sorted some things out. We've had Shep get access to the fire service radio channels and vice versa after they weren't able to communicate on a scene again up in the Rock Hill area on I-77. And these are positive moves forward that come out of these TIM team meetings. So the networking, the different things that can be accomplished, these meetings are very important. So again, we encourage you to participate. We encourage you to get other members of your agencies and area agencies to participate in these TIM team meetings. Today's agenda, I'll go through some statistics, just talk about how bad things are, and they are catching up to very, very bad. They were very bad. Now they're getting up to very, very bad in our state with roadway fatalities. So I'll go through some statistics and talk a little bit about that, and then I'll hand it off to another gentleman with the Parsons Corporation who's got a great presentation for you on public safety, distracted driving, and the consequences of that. And then we'll go over to a gentleman with DHEC, and he's a member of the emergency response team for hazmat incidents. And Jay will give us some really beneficial information as to why they respond, when they respond, who they are, what they do, all that neat stuff. We are working with several agencies right now. As of June 1st, we got the green light to go back to face-to-face training. We do stick to social distancing, masks, temperatures, all that stuff, whatever's required. So that's still part of this. But we do have some pretty good sessions. I had one last Saturday up in Chesterfield County, up in Pageland. I had 30 people, law enforcement and fire, in the Sharp 2 class. If your agency wishes to have the training or needs the training, please get in touch with me and let's schedule. I got some open dates between now and the end of the year, and we're already starting to book some classes in the new year in January. So the calendar may start filling up fairly soon. Please get in touch with me and let's get these classes scheduled. Once the classes are scheduled, if you're interested in attending them or TIM team meetings, you need to register on sctimnetwork.com. That's the only way we have to notify you if there's a change in venue or perhaps a cancellation. Nothing worse than driving a distance and showing up for a meeting or a class, and then people say, "Oh no, didn't you find out it?" They let everybody know that registered that it was canceled because we only had 3 people registered. So that's very important that you do register on sctimnetwork.com. Next slide, please. So we had a meeting, a TIM team meeting this morning, number 7 for this session in the fall, Jasper I-95. 7, 8, 9. No, that was number 8. So this is number 9. Math's not my best subject, as you can tell. This is number 9, the Aiken TIM team area. And then on Thursday, we'll wrap up number 10 in the Orangeburg area. If you are aware of someone at your agency, or you know someone who was not able to click to click into this feed, and they would like to get the information that comes out of the this particular TIM team meeting, they are welcome to register for this session at 10 a.m. November 12th. Again, just go on sctimnetwork.com and register, and they will be sent a feed for that. So that's open to anyone. All right, so numbers, in person and web. Let me just clarify between the two. The web class is a generic Federal Highway Administration web class. The only recertification hours you get from that is in specifically with EMS, because the class, either web-based through the Federal Highway Administration or local with ourselves, is CAPC certified, Federal DOT certified. So you, if you're National Registry EMS, you will get 4 hours towards your recertification. If you take the class in person with us and your law enforcement, you get 3.5 hours towards your recertification. And we get a course code and section number for fire personnel, so they will get credit for 4 hours training through the academy on their transcripts. The fire and law enforcement hours are not available on the web. So that puts even more emphasis on the in-person training. Next slide, please. Goal this year was 60%. We may make it, we may not. I'm hoping we do. We're actually sitting right now, I think, at 59.4%. So we're 0.6% out of 60. I mean, that's great if we can hit 60. It still means 40% in this state are not trained yet, have not gone through the program. We need everybody to go through the program. It's very important that when we show up on the scene, we're all playing off the same sheet of music. It just makes the scene that much safer, and it goes that much smoother. So again, if you know people that need this training, please get a hold of me and let's get stuff set up. And I mean, the least we need is 15 participants. If we can get 15 or more, we're in good shape, and we've got to invite all disciplines. That's not guaranteeing they'll all show up, but we've got to invite all disciplines so that we can offer this important training, life-saving training, to everybody out there who's responding to wreck scenes. Next slide, please. So Aiken County, where are we sitting as of the 18th of last month? These were the last numbers. We get county totals once or twice a month. Aiken County, we were sitting at 22. Bamberg, Barnwell, you can see 3. Our worst counties, this is a list. You don't want to be number 1 On Greenville, 69, Berkeley, you can see 55, and then on down Horry, Charleston, Spartanburg. So a lot of roadway fatalities. I mean, one in any county is one too many, but a lot of roadway fatalities. This year we were we were behind because of COVID. People were off the roads. We were well behind last year until just the last few weeks. You'll see on the next slide how we're catching up here. So 876, that's a pretty critical number right now. 876 year to date. When we put this program together, Aiken County, you can see, is 2.5% of that, less than 1% Bamberg and Barnwell counties. Now 876 as of yesterday, we are at 879. We are down 8 crashes from last year at this time, but we are up 16 fatalities. So that's really, really serious. Down 8 crashes, but we're up 16 fatalities over last year. So just a lot more work needs to be done in this area. Not that everybody's not stretched thin now, certainly are, but we need to get our legislators behind law enforcement and get a lot more guys and gals out there in the roadways, being visible and enforcing some of these D drivers that are racing up and down the roads. Next slide, please. So I'm very fortunate to be handing the microphone off now to a field project manager with us, the Parsons Corporation, and Kevin Smith will introduce himself and tell you all about distracted driving. So Kevin, it's over.
Well, good morning. Jeff, thank you for that introduction. My name is Kevin Smith. I'm retired law enforcement, 29 years in the metropolitan Atlanta area. I retired out as a lieutenant, as a watch commander, and assistant team leader for SWAT. I put in about 24 years with SWAT, as well as spending over half of my career in the traffic unit, riding motors, working fatalities, and all that kind of stuff. I've been really passionate about traffic incident management for about the last 10 years or so. Spent a lot of time planning special events and trying to mitigate traffic and that type of thing. And I've been with Parsons now for a couple of years. Hopefully I can bring you some information that you hadn't really thought about and have you look at it in a different way. Next slide, please. Distracted driving is something that we see every day that the citizens out there do, whether they're talking on a cell phone, putting on makeup, shaving, taking notes, texting, or eating. We see it all the time. Next slide, please. But is this a common occurrence in your public safety vehicle? Fire and EMS typically ride more than one person in the vehicle, and the right seater can control the laptop and the radio, leaving the driver to do nothing but focus on driving, especially in emergency situations. But law enforcement doesn't have that. Law enforcement typically rides one up nationwide. And so they not only have to drive, they have to update the computer and do all that other kind of stuff. So there's a lot of stuff competing for our attention when we're operating our vehicles. Next slide. Yeah. Public safety officers may be legally exempt from the distracted driving laws, but we're not immune from the psychological, physiological, and physics of it. It's estimated that more than 30% of public safety crashes involve distracted driving. It's also, NHTSA estimates that 94% of crashes nationwide, public safety and regular motorists, involve some sort of distracted driving. Currently, the laptop and the phone are the primary offenders for public safety. And since the laptop has become the primary method of information delivery. For many years, we got everything over the radio, and we had to write down the lookouts and write down the address and so forth. Now it comes to us through that laptop. And many times, and I'm not trying to pick on dispatch, because dispatch is an integral part of what we do. The people, boots on the ground, and dispatch have to work together. Nobody works for anybody else. We all work, and we're all equally important. But a lot of times when public safety asks for a repeat of information, they'll say, well, the information's in the call. Well, that's great if you have time to look, but if you don't have time to look, if you're in the middle of a armed robbery call, or if you're in the middle of driving around looking for that trader on that car or on that call, dispatch needs to give that information again when requested to do so by boots on the ground. Next slide, please. Studies have shown audio stimuli takes precedence over visual stimuli in the human brain. When humans attempt to multitask or pay attention to more than one thing, our visual range decreases. It's not that our eyes don't pick up that visual stimuli and send it to the brain. It's that our brain can't process that because we have so much bandwidth, and our brain automatically processes that audible stimuli over before the visual stimuli. This may go back to prehistoric days when it was more important to hear that saber-toothed tiger than see it. By the time the caveman saw that saber-toothed tiger, it was probably too late. So drivers distracted by cell phone use or anything else, quote unquote, see significantly less than drivers not on the cell phone. As you look at the graphic, you'll see the undistracted driver on the left and a distracted driver on the right. The distracted driver is seeing about 60% less, or processing 60% less of the visual information than the non-distracted. And this is true for both handheld and hands-free use. When cell phone use first became prevalent and national insurance institutes and federal highway and so forth started doing all their studies, they used to differentiate between handheld and hands-free cellular use. But after 10 years or so, they realized that there was insignificant difference, statistically insignificant difference between the two as far as it comes to distraction. It was less than one standard of deviation for anybody who's familiar with statistics. So they don't test it that way anymore. They don't differentiate between handheld and hands-free. They just, whether you're on the phone or not, whether you're distracted or not. The next slide you're going to see is going to be a video of a bicyclist who had a helmet cam mounted, and you're going to see what happens when a police officer isn't paying attention. Go ahead and run the video, please.
You mother! What the fuck are you looking at your phone, officer?
Apologize for the jerkiness of the video, but the bicyclist pulls up. He pulled past the stop bar a little bit, but he pulls up and he sits there for about 10 seconds on this video. He'll be sitting there for about 10 seconds, looking left and looking right, waiting for a break in traffic. And he sees the police car coming down the road and doesn't think a thing about it until the police car makes a left turn, and the police officer driving it wasn't paying attention. He was looking at his phone, and he turned left directly into and hit the bicyclist. The bicyclist wasn't moving. He was stationary. We've all seen the public safety announcements of look twice, save a life, motorcycles are everywhere. Well, bicycles fall into that. Many times people aren't looking for bicycles or motorcycles. And so we kind of only see what we expect to see. And since he was distracted, he wasn't paying any attention, distracted by his phone. He wasn't paying any attention and hit a stationary operator, a bicyclist. The next video you're going to see is a tragic story of what happens when public safety doesn't do what they're supposed to do. Go ahead and run the video, please.
He's constantly warned us about the dangers of distracted driving. They can even give you a ticket.
you're texting behind the wheel.
But a 41 Action News investigation found some officers are not taking their own advice. Investigator Ryan Katz shows the consequences of what happens when an officer's attention wanders from the road.
This photo was taken the day sisters Jessica and Kelly Ewell lost their lives.
You never know in life that that would be your last moment. And I really hope that they didn't know.
It was the day after Thanksgiving in 2007. Kim Schlau remembers seeing the coroner walk up to her house.
I didn't want to open the door because if I opened that door, it became real. You know, and until I opened that door, I still had 3 daughters.
Jessica and Kelly died in a horrific head-on collision with an Illinois state trooper.
He literally drove through the top of their car.
The trooper was responding to a car crash in the St. Louis area. Court records show he was driving 126 miles per hour, talking to his girlfriend on a cell phone, and emailing for directions on his computer when he lost control of the car.
On so many levels, this crash was preventable.
An extreme and tragic example. We found video of other crashes that never made headlines. Watch as this Missouri state trooper driving 60 while looking at his computer drifts off the road and then loses control. 41 Action News investigators looked through 40 crash reports in Missouri, all with a common cause: distracted driving by law enforcement.
I said, watch out. And that's when he hit.
Bob Dyer was driving on this Independence Road last August when he slowed down to take a right-hand turn. Police officer driving behind him never even hit the brakes. Bob's head smashed the back window of his truck.
He says, I'm so sorry. He says, I was looking at my computer.
We read similar stories all over the state. Officers getting into wrecks because of distraction.
And just listen to the close call a sheriff's deputy had last year. He was on the phone and approaching a railroad crossing in rural Johnson County, Missouri. He says he didn't see or hear the train coming until the very last second when he slammed on the brakes.
The train collided with the bumper on the deputy's car and actually spun it around so it was parallel with the train tracks. That deputy just a couple feet away from losing his life. We found distraction is cited as the main cause in an average of 3 police crashes every month.
Yeah, it's very easy to get distracted.
Sergeant Andy Coates, a state patrol veteran of 17 years, admits there's a lot competing for his attention these days.
Black Ford Taurus.
Along with the radio, there are lights and sirens, radar technology, and most of all, the laptop sitting right next to the wheel.
Officers are wrecking squad cars all over the country because they're distracted, because they're focused on something else.
It's such a problem that Keith Wenzel, a longtime sergeant with the Dallas Police Department, now leads a crash course in distracted driving, from fender benders to serious wrecks. His message to officers: can't divide your focus between computers and the road.
You may get complacent in what you do and realize, well, I can do all these things and still maintain control of my vehicle, when the reality is you can't.
And that's the crux of it. Now, unfortunately, that 2007 crash that was the main part of this article, obviously that was preventable in so many levels, in so many ways. There is no excuse for driving 126 miles an hour, even on an interstate, if there's not a lot of other traffic out there. We all know that we want to get to the scene of the call fast to try to help, but we want to get there safely. And if we cause a wreck on the way, we're just taking away needed resources from where it needs to be. We're becoming part of the problem. And there's no excuse for driving that fast going to a crash. I mean, you're out driving your siren, you're pretty much out driving, especially when you're on the cell phone and computer and everything else, you're out driving your abilities. The next little video is from my agency. It's what happens when an officer looks away from the road for 2 to 3 seconds. Go ahead and play that, please. That was a brand new Cadillac that the patrol car hit, that the agency had to replace, had to pay the medical bills and settle that lawsuit. I mean, obviously, our officer was at fault. He settled it without any problem and made the victim whole, like we should have done. But 2 to 3 seconds of distraction is what caused a $100,000 claim. Unfortunately, the woman that was hit wasn't hurt very badly. Some of the suggestions to prevent a crash. First and foremost, use the radio. It's old school technology, but it works. It gets the information out there. It allows you to communicate and get the information you need. Close the laptop lid to make it less appealing next to you. As long as that sucker's open, your eyes are going to be drawn to it. There is technology out there, GPS-based technology that can either blank your laptop when the vehicle's moving more than a preset number of miles an hour, or at least lock the controls to where when the screen is up, you can't manipulate it, change screens, or do anything like that. You can still see the call with the information in it, but you're not going to be able to update the computer, or there's no sense trying to do all that. But realistically, at the end of the day, if you have to use the laptop for something while you're driving, pull over to the side of the road. There's no sense trying to get it all done. We're not superhuman, no matter what we think or no matter what our training officers told us. We are human, and we need to be focused on what we're doing so that we don't cause any harm. Next slide, please. There's two big events, one in November, one in December coming up. The one in December is the Drive Sober or Get Pulled Over enforcement mobilization that goes on nationwide for the holiday. It'll be December 16th through January 1st. If you want information on it, you can go to trafficsafetymarketing.gov to get materials, or you can go to nhtsa.gov. The other one is National Traffic Incident Responder Awareness Week, which is going on this week, all week. And it's all about responder safety, move over laws, and the motoring public being aware of first responders being out in the roadway. Please go to Federal Highway or NHTSA or Traffic Safety Marketing and look up information on that. Maybe your agency will be involved in some sort of public safety announcement or some sort of the events that are involved in that. If you have any questions or comments, you're more than welcome to use the chat feature or the Q&A feature here in the WebEx, or you can email Jeff Allen. He'll have his email address up at the end of this at the end of the PIM team meeting. If I don't know the answer, if Jeff doesn't know the answer, we'll find somebody who does to get you the information. Hopefully, giving you something to think about when you go to work, and have a safe day. Jeff Allen, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
I like that guy had a crash course on how not to do. No, we won't go there. Good stuff, Kevin. I appreciate it very much. My training officer always said I was a good shot, but he certainly never, ever said I was superhuman. But that's a whole other story. Maybe that's why he never gave me a cape. Next presentation, Jay Cox. He is with South Carolina Department of Health and Environmental Control. And Jay's going to talk to us and tell us all about what DHEC emergency response people can do when we have a hazmat incident. Jay, the microphone is yours.
Okay, just want to make sure I can be heard.
You are heard.
Thank you. I am Jay Cox. I'm with the South Carolina Department of Health and Environmental Control. I am the environmental response coordinator for our area. And so we've designed a little presentation that we kind of cover some basic stuff when we have incidents called in. I work out of the Myrtle Beach office. We have Horry, Georgetown, and Williamsburg County. Next slide. So initial notifications when we have spills, releases, and they could be all chemical, really any kind of release that can affect the environment. We'll get a notification. Typically, we have a 24-hour reporting line for chemical release, oil spills, and notifications can be made by using toll-free number 1-888-481-0125. And we typically like for that dispatch, for whoever's calling it in, or if we have 911 or emergency management that's calling that notification in to us, We like to get a cell phone number for that first responder or whoever that is on the scene, whether that's highway patrol or fire department personnel, so we can call and make a contact at them and kind of give them information as well. Next slide. So an on-scene coordinator, when one of our team members is on call for the week and they are responding to a call that's come in, we kind of designate them as the regional on-scene coordinator. So if I was on call this week and I got called something, I would be the regional on-scene coordinator for the Department of Environmental Response. And so we're usually dispatched to make an initial assessment at a scene where something's been released or there's been a spill of some type. And if we see that we may need additional sources or staff or any other kind of equipment that may be necessary for the incident that's occurred, we would reach back to our partners in Columbia to provide us those resources. Next slide. DHEC responsibilities en route and on the scene. So we're going to be, making our way to where this incident occurred, and so we're going to be trying to contact that incident commander or highway patrol officer to determine, kind of what's happened, how much, the size, the impact, what kind of release it is. We're also going to let them know kind of what our ETA to the scene is going to be to the best that we can estimate, and coordinate with the responsible party. So whoever is basically responsible for the release, we're going to be contacting them and kind of giving them a info on what's occurred if they haven't heard about it already, and kind of what expectations are kind of going to be they would have as far as cleanup and containing any kind of releases. Next slide. DHEC responsibilities on the scene. Again, we're going to ensure environmental releases are controlled at the source, contained, and cleaned up appropriately. And those are typically not always, but most of that stuff is going to be done by that responsible party or the owner of the truck or whoever caused the release to occur. Next slide. Additional information that we would gather: what time the incident occurred, what materials were released, what quantities were released, any known hazards of that material, any safety data sheets that may be available to kind of help with determining what kind of response and cleanup may be needed, any manifest or shipping papers available that would also help again determine any known hazards and what kind of materials have been released. Is there a responsible party on site? And is there a cleanup contractor that is currently en route to the scene to begin some cleanup activities? Next slide. Also, other information, identify the extent, volume, impacted areas, areas with potential to be impacted, and other areas of concern. So that gets into the how much, what kind, where did it occur, what is it going to impact? Is it going to kind of just be local and just within, several feet of where the incident occurred, or is it going to be a large amount of something that was released and it may impact other areas? So if we do have a responsible party on site, we're going to be trying to gather their information for them, the name, phone number, their company, insurance company. Insurance companies a lot of times will be the ones hiring a third-party contractor. Also, we're going to be relaying details of the incident impact and their responsibility. So, we're going to be kind of, this is something you're responsible for as far as cleanup. Your truck, caused a certain release of something, and there's an expectation of their responsibility to effectively clean the release up. Next slide. So if a responsible party is not at the scene or we don't know one at the moment in time, so we'll start to kind of use some other tools, usually in coordination with the highway patrol officer or whoever law enforcement is there to obtain some information on who the driver was, truck ownership. We also use some DOT information on the truck, along with there are now apps that phone apps that we can use that also assist with that. Of course, license plate. Kodo, that's our central office duty officer in Columbia, and we can take the information that we gather on the scene and also kind of call them back and provide that to them and say, here's the information I got. Can you try and help me track down who a responsible party may be for this? Next slide. DHEC responsibilities for cleanup. So we're there to ensure that environmental releases have been kind of contained to start out with. And then that contractor, the RP has got a contractor en route to come in and do some cleanup. Going to make sure that's properly disposed of. So if it's hazardous, it goes to a facility that can handle hazardous waste. If it's, just needs to go to a landfill, we'll verify that it's been taken there by, tipping receipts or shipping papers, manifests, things of that nature, and identify any receptors at the incident scene, such as creeks, waterways, ponds, soil, wells, water lines, for any potential follow-up testing or other remediation needed after that initial release has occurred. Next slide. DHEC is not responsible for, calling an evacuation or traffic control. We like to leave that to the highway patrol and law enforcement. They're the best at it. Medical services are definitely EMTs. Public safety, fire department, if there's any utilities that have been impacted, or power line, or gas line or water line, something that may be kind of safety or public safety related, we try to lean on our fire department or fire marshal for some of that. Roadside cleanup, that's going to be that cleanup contractor in coordination with the responsible party to get that cleaned up. And in the same respect, they need to coordinate with any kind of state or county DOT officials for any traffic safety that may be needed at the scene for them to effectively conduct their cleanup. Next slide. So it's going to be some examples of some releases, what they may look like when a first responder arrives on the scene. And here we got a tractor trailer that barrels of a chemical of some sort, and we may get a call to advise on the material, what its properties may be, or going off the information that's provided on the label of the container. Is it a fire hazard? Can it, can they apply water if there is a fire? Would water make it explosive? Is there an air inhalation hazard? Things of that nature. So that's the kind of, a lot of times a first responder may not have that information immediately. And they would like, DHEC to kind of offer some advice and assistance in the handling of that material. Next slide. Fuel releases tend to be our most popular probably release that we have. And we definitely have different fluids that can be released: diesel oil, fuel, transmission fluid, hydraulic fluid, and where those fluids are kind of being released and where they're going to eventually impact. Next slide. And so we typically see the punctured saddle tank with diesel, sometimes gasoline. And that's going to be majority of what we end up responding to a lot of the times, not every time, but it tends to be our majority. Next slide. And we'll usually have to kind of wait for the wreck or whatever has occurred to kind of be moved out, so we can kind of determine what kind of impact it's been, whether it's strictly contained on the highway, if it involves both the highway and the side of the highway or on soil, and can effectively kind of determine where and how much of an impact may have been. Next slide. And so, fuel that's been spilled on the road, sand, dirt, oil dry, really good options for trying to start to contain that and try to effect a cleanup on it. And so trying to contain it so it doesn't get away, and a lot of times you'll use what's handy. A lot of our fire departments will have some speedy dry, oil dry on hand and things of that nature. Next slide. So if there's been a large amount of fuel that's been released, sometimes that will kind of collect and put on the side or affect a larger amount of area of soil. If there is still free product that is there, may need to get a vac truck in to kind of back that up, and then in turn they will either excavate or in some manner kind of dig up that soil that's been impacted and put it in containers to have it disposed of properly. Next slide. Issues related to cleanup. So, you know, a lot of times the fuel, if the fuel has been released, it will a lot of times be contained to just the roadway. We have really good, usually DOT's really good. They'll come in and put down some sand, and that'll kind of help contain it, start to dry it up or get it in a form to where it can be removed. And that the cleanup contractor is going to be the one that's going to be responsible for cleaning that up. So DOT's usually pretty good about putting it down. Contractor will be the one responsible for getting it up. And a lot of times there's gasoline. Gasoline is really very evaporative, so it's typically there's none recoverable by the time we get to it. And sometimes we do allow it to naturally attenuate, and you know, will evaporate into the, you know, just naturally just in the course of a day. So next slide. So RP responsibilities include notifications or any offsite notifications that are required. So like National Response Center, U.S. Coast Guard, if something's impacted any kind of waters that they are responsible for, any kind of county officials that may need to be notified, that RP is typically responsible for making those notifications. They're also responsible for spill containment and containing it in a timely and diligent manner. Sometimes we do get some assistance with our DOT again with getting something down in a quick manner, but normally that responsible party is the one that needs to be doing that. Cleanup and removal of waste is typically performed by a third-party contractor, and again, that's if sand or oil dry has been put down, then that contractor is going to be one to clean that up, put it in containers, and get it disposed of. And that disposal information is going to come back to the regional on-scene coordinator. So if I'm on call that week, I'm usually the one that's going to be corresponding with that RP, typically through the whole event until it's done, and there's a final where that soil or whatever's been removed and remediated and has had a final kind of resting place of where it's being treated, then I would be the one that they would coordinate and get that information to. Next slide. And so our main environmental response phone number is 803-898-3432. If there happen to be any general questions or anything like that, again, this is kind of designed to be very basic and not necessarily specific to how each county is going to have something a little bit different and have different resources available to them. Oil and chemical spill can be reported toll free 1-888-481-0125. And our hope is that at some point when we can get back to face-to-face meetings, that this will be a presentation that the local ERT person can give in their respective counties and kind of direct this more towards how that their area works, and give it as a tool of networking where they can meet some of the first responders that they may be dealing with in their counties and regions. And thank you very much.
Good stuff, Jay. Thank you, sir. Great information. I know I worked a lot of hazmat incidents over the years, quarter century. I feel old saying that. Being with fire service, almost quarter century anyway, being with the fire service, and a lot of interstates, a lot of 2-lane roads, doesn't matter. You can have hazmat incidents just about anywhere. And it's always good to know what the great people at DHEC can do to help us with, and when to call them and when not to call them. I mean, that's just as important. So, Jay, appreciate your input and the information that you passed along. You can see that you can follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/SCTIM Network. You can follow us on Twitter, as you can see there, twitter.com/SCTIM Network, or down the bottom right sctimnetwork.com. Pull the calendar up. Any training, any meetings that you would like to participate in, you just click on that date on the listing and register, and you're in. We're happy to see you at any one of our meetings or training sessions. Next slide, please. And there's my partner in crime, the guy who supports this program statewide, Ray Parker with the South Carolina Department of Transportation. He is the Traffic Incident Management Coordinator there. You can see his email, his phone number, and then my contact information below that. Again, email and phone number, and anything at all that we can do to coordinate some training or answer any questions for you in regards to what you've heard today or anything down the road, please do not hesitate to get in touch with us. So again, thank you for joining us. I hope you got something out of this online meeting today, and we look forward to seeing you again down the road. Bye for now.
Also, Jeff, I also wanted to say that the videos from this presentation are also available on the sctimnetwork.com website.
Yep.
So if you want to try to watch them, if they didn't play well for you here, you can go there and get them and hopefully see them a little better.
Good stuff. Thanks, Kevin. Okay, everybody have a good day.